Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we are looking at the Sage 5 from Spyderco. This one started its life as a Sage 5 Salt lightweight, but as you can see I swapped out the yellow FRN scales for some red G10 ones because red is just much more my jam. This is far from my only Sage 5 though, and because I also have the Maxamet, the Spy 27, and the S30V. Now, these two both started their life as lightweight versions. This one has the double black linen micarta scales from Ripp's Garage Tech. These are also from Ripp's Garage Tech, by the way. These are the red G10. This started its life as the Spy 27 lightweight, and these are aluminum scales from Ripp's Garage Tech. I can't remember the name of those. I will add it here in post because I can't remember the actual name of this. And these are actually, I got these off of Etsy from a shop called Svechnikov Workshop. He makes wood scales for a lot of different knife models. And I do want to point out, just so you know, you're aware, and you know, if you're ordering them, the edge finish was not fantastic on these. I really didn't bug them about it because shipping anything to or from Finland was just going to be prohibitively expensive. So I really didn't bother with it. The sides look great, so which is what really matters. Not a lot of people are looking at this side. So, but you can see I also did swap out the hardware to make it a little more like antique-ish to go with the wood grips. So, but anyway, those are all of the Sage 5s that I have. So, in addition to the examples that I have, as far as production models, there is also a Rex 121 model, which that is going to be the edge retention king out of all of these. The Maxamet holds its own, but Rex 121 is just on a whole different level when it comes to edge retention. Blade HQ also had an M4 blade version. I have not been able to find that anywhere. It would be secondary market at this point because it's not in stock. And I just haven't been able to get my hands on one at a reasonable price. But all of the various models comes with a 3-inch leaf shape blade. I've seen this also called a drop point blade, but I think leaf shape is probably a better description. For opening, they all have the famous Spidey hole. And I am much more of a thumb stud person, but Spyderco is one of the exceptions to that. I really do like the Spidey hole when it comes to opening. The Sage 5 comes in both standard versions that have G10 scales and the lightweight versions that have fiber reinforced nylon or FRN scales. Right now, the Spy 27 and the Rex 121 steel versions have both a G10 standard version and lightweight version. While the other ones, I believe, all only come in a lightweight setup. I know the S30V used to come in a standard version that had black G10 with a carbon fiber overlay, but that was discontinued a while back. That's actually my wood scaled one. That's what this started its life out as, was one of the standard G10 versions of the S30V. So, but one thing that's unique to the Sage 5 among Spyderco models is that the lightweight version actually comes with full liners. It's really hard to see on that one because of the black finish on them, but you can see a little bit better in here. Full liners in there, which most lightweight models for Spyderco use minimal liners or virtually no liners at all. So what that means, though, is that a lot of the scales that will fit the lightweight models of the Sage 5 will also fit the standard model and vice versa. I've seen some scales say that they are only for the lightweight model, but I really haven't been able to test that out because I can't see any actual difference between the two. But with that being the case, though, a lot of times if I'm going to buy one and you have the option for the standard G10 or the lightweight model, I'm going to change the scales anyway. So I will just buy the lightweight model and pay a little bit less because those usually run about $40 cheaper. I'll just buy the lightweight because I know I'm going to change the scales on it. And there are several companies out there making scales for these. Ripp's Garage Tech is definitely one of my favorites. 3 of mine have theirs on them. There's also, like I said, the Svechnikov Workshop on Etsy that's making wood scales for them. There are a couple different patterns that are different from the one that I have that he makes. And I believe there's Parsons Blade Works, I believe, makes them. And I want to say that Applied Weapons Tech also has um, scales out for this now. They have started making scales more recently, so I haven't had a chance to look at them, but I'm about 99% sure that they are making them now. So on to the ergos. I'm going to have to speak, with the aftermarket scales because that's all that I have. I can't speak to the FRN or the G10 as far as, long-term use. I did hold them both. I'm not as big on the FRN scales. I prefer their G10 scales if you're going to stay stock. So it's just my opinion. But with the aftermarket scales, you're not changing a whole lot of the base ergos, which this is the most comfortable way for me to hold the knife. I get my finger up in the choil there, my thumb up on the thumb ramp here with the jimping. Extremely comfortable, extremely strong grip with this. There's lots of different ways you can use this. You can also use it, the box cutter style like that, but really, really good grip like this. And you can get a full forefinger grip even without getting up in that choil, which is actually was kind of surprising to me. It's not as comfortable to get your thumb all the way up in that thumb ramp, obviously, just because your hand's farther down. You can do it, but this is much more comfortable for me as far as how you hold the knife. As far as the locking mechanism, this uses Spyderco's very, very popular and very prodigious within their line compression lock. And I find it very comfortable to actuate as is. And there are companies that make like little G10 buttons that you can attach to this part of the compression lock. I have never found that to be necessary, but they are out there if you would like to look into them. And also now, the Sage 5 has a newer cousin called the Sage 6, which uses a button-operated compression lock, which instead of having this here, it has a button right here. And that Sage 6 was actually the first review that I ever did here on YouTube. So if you're interested in that, I'll put the link up here, and you can go check that out. But this is the OG compression lock, and I actually prefer the original compression lock to the button-operated compression lock from Spyderco. So your opinion may vary, and that's the great thing about the internet is we can all have opinions. Back to the Sage 5, across all the models, I found the action to be pretty consistent. I've been able to get them all drop shot just with a little bit of tweaking of the pivot screws. They all operate very, very well, very snappy. This one, I feel like out of all of them, this one's a tiny bit looser, and I don't know if that's because of the scales and maybe just the wood feels a little bit different, but still very, very similar on that one. And then I'll just bring in the Maxamet because why not? But you can see all of them very, very similar in how they operate. So very good consistency across those. On to carry, the Sage 5 comes with a wire clip, as you can see here. And I actually prefer that to the standard Spyderco clips. Nothing wrong with the standard Spyderco clips. And actually, this is not a standard Spyderco clip, but just so you can see the design. This is actually a deep carry pocket clip from an aftermarket company. But you can see much more minimalist design here on the wire clip on the Sage 5. So, and I'll bring this back in here soon for size comparison. But the Sage 5 really disappears down into the pocket when you drop it down in there. You can see a little bit of red sticking up there, which, red on blue, that's going to stand out quite a bit anyway. But, let's theoretically say this was blue. You would barely even notice this down here, especially with the black finish on the pocket clip. And, I've seen some people complain about retention with these, but I mean, I'm pulling on that pretty good. You have to really try to get that bad boy out of there. So really good retention without being, oppressive where it's going to tear up your pockets. And I'll bring in one of the other ones that has more of the silver finish. And you can see just the same, not a whole lot of tension on that. I mean, plenty of tension is actually what I mean. Like you have to really work on pulling to get that out. And bring in this one just because this is the aftermarket one, and this one I think probably has see, this one has a little bit less, but this is also not from Spyderco. This is an aftermarket one that I got to match the finish, so just for context. So but as I said, I think that I actually prefer the wire clip over the regular clip, and maybe that's sacrilege. Maybe I'll get some big disagreements on that down in the comment section. But if you want a more standard looking clip, Lynch Northwest does make a more standard looking clip that uses the same mounting system here. So if that is more your jam, theirs are pretty reasonably priced too. Ripp's Garage Tech also makes one, but it's noticeably more expensive. So I would probably lean towards the Lynch Northwest clip personally. But as I said, you can see it really disappears in the pocket when you use it, and plenty of retention. So as far as overall build quality, aside from swapping scales on these, I really haven't had to do anything with them. When I swap the scales out, I do put some lubrication on there and things like that. But outside of that, I really haven't had to do anything with them, aside from tweak the tension on the pivot screws, which that's kind of a standard thing on every knife to get to the point where you don't have any blade play, which none of mine have any blade play, but also have a drop shut action. So the compression lock is one of the stronger locks out there, and it is not only a very strong lock, but it is also a lock that puts your fingers out of the blade path, and that is a big deal for me. You may have noticed if you've watched more of my reviews that I haven't reviewed a folder that has a liner lock or a frame lock, because I just really do not like putting my thumb in the blade path when you're closing a knife, which is what you'd be doing, putting your thumb right here like that. And maybe I'm just uncoordinated, but it's just not something that I like doing. So just my opinion. So on to the pros and the cons. Ergos are a huge pro for me. Like I said, very comfortable in my hand with large, extra large size hands. The options for steels are great. I'm not going to go over them again, but obviously you can get a steel with kind of what you want as far as properties. The action is great. As I was just talking about, the 3-inch blade is going to be legal in most places across the United States. As always, check the local laws, but it's going to be legal across a lot of the US. Value, especially with some of the lightweight versions, is a big thing for me too. The Salt and Magnacut, the Spy 27, and the S30V lightweights all fall in the $150 to $170 range when they're not on sale, which I think is a decent value for what you get. Or not an American made knife, which we're going to get into that in a little bit, but non-Chinese manufactured knife with very solid steels. Spyderco does a great job on their heat treats. With a decent aftermarket, $150 to $170 is pretty reasonable to me. The G10 options, when they are available, run about $40 more, just for context. So if you aren't wanting to replace the scales and you want G10, just kind of figure about $40 more than that. So on to cons. Since I just said, price is a positive, it's kind of weird to say, but price can also be a con with these, specifically in the Maxamet and Rex 121 models, because those run closer to $240 to $300. Now, that is definitely on the high end for a knife for me, but I have to put that into context because Rex 121 and Maxamet are a little bit more expensive to make, and when you are grinding the blade and things like that, they take a lot more work. You go through more belts and things like that, so I understand why they are more expensive. And one of the things you have to realize too is that almost no other company is making knives in Maxamet and Rex 121. There are a few other companies, but they're usually smaller batch companies. As far as production knives, I can't think of anybody offhand who is making Maxamet and Rex 121 in a production knife. If you do know, put it down in the comments because I do want to know, but I can't think of anybody offhand. Also, a fair number of people don't like the FRN scales, and I'm among those. Like I said, I usually get the lightweights because I know I'm going to swap the scales. There's nothing wrong with the G10 or the FRN scales from Spyderco. Like I said, I just like switching them out. And as I mentioned, nation of origin could be a con for you if you like American-made knives. This is not made in America. This is actually made in Spyderco's Taichung, Taiwan factory. And this may be sacrilege, but I actually think that Taichung, Taiwan does a better job on the compression lock than the Golden, Colorado factory. And you can come at me about that, but I have just found my Taichung, Taiwan manufactured knives just to be a little bit smoother and snappier than my Golden, Colorado versions. And if you want to put me on blast, go ahead and do it down in the comments, but I said what I said. So now on to size comparisons. So the one that I had out earlier was a Spyderco Para 3. This one obviously has aftermarket scales, but pretty similar in size. The blade shapes are a little bit different, as you can see. I prefer the leaf shaped blade personally, but both have their perks. This one definitely has a finer tip. It's going to be a little more, I would say, fragile because of the blade design, but I mean, I still haven't broken this thing and I've used it plenty. But the one thing that I really do prefer on the Sage 5 over the Para 3 is the finger choil up here. This isn't a bad finger choil. It's still one of the more secure ones that I have, but it's a little shallow for my taste. I'm going to hold them up so you can compare them side by side. But you can see the Sage 5 definitely goes much deeper there. So that is one big difference, and one of the ones that makes a big difference to me personally. Next, I'm going to bring out the mini Bugout, and this one has some aftermarket scales, but doesn't change the size or anything like that. You can see the mini Bugout is definitely smaller, lighter. If I need an absolute lightweight knife as a gentleman's knife, this is what I go to, although the wood scaled version of this also makes a great gentleman's knife. It's just a little bit heavier. So just for a little bit of context. But next we have the Benchmade North Fork. And you might not recognize this as a North Fork offhand because when I was trying to tweak the action on this, and this has been a frustration with me for each of the Benchmades that I've owned, I had to do tweaking with the action to get it to where it didn't have blade play, but it would actually drop shut. And in doing that on this one, I actually cracked the original wood scales. And I didn't want to go through the trouble of getting wood scales from Benchmade because when I tried to get, a barrel spacer from them, they were really touchy about it. They didn't want to send me the part. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just see if I can find someone online. I ordered these. They were from an Etsy shop in Canada. Come to find out, they actually just ordered these from China and just marked up the price massively. Didn't realize that until afterward, but you know, do your research on stuff like that. But I do like these scales, and I do like the knife overall. I don't like the recurve blade. The new version, this is the old version. The new version doesn't have the recurve blade. Although the thing I do like about this one is that it doesn't have the orange backspacer like the new one does. So, but anyway, size is comparable. You don't have a front choil on this, so it's a little bit different ergos wise. I do like the forward jimping on this one that the Sage 5 does not have. It gets pretty thin down here, so I understand not putting jimping, but I wouldn't have minded it. But anyway, pretty comparable size wise. Next, we have the Hogue Ritter Mini RSK. And I got the mini because of blade length laws by me. If you can legally have the regular RSK, definitely worth looking at. But these are both Magnacut steel. The RSK did not come with a very good grind. This side actually had virtually no, like when it got back here, the grind was so uneven it almost wasn't sharpened on this side. I had to do my own sharpening. So that was something that I didn't like, but just to provide you some context. Next, I have the Kizer Drop Bear, who does, in my opinion, one of the best not compression locks, best crossbar locks out there with their clutch lock. This is an exclusive in S90V from Knife Center, but you can see very comparable in size. And next we have the Kershaw Bel Air, again, very similar in size. Blade length is a little bit longer. This one was actually advertised as 3 inches when I bought it, but now they advertised it as 3.1, so I really don't carry it as much anymore because it is long for my blade length restrictions here. And last but not least, we have the Demko AD20.5, which this is definitely a much larger blade, much heavier blade, but blade length is just about the same and actually kind of a similar blade shape. So those are the size comparisons. So would I buy this again and would I recommend it? Well, considering the fact that I own 4 of these, obviously the answer to would I buy more is yes. And it gets a solid recommendation in my book. Truthfully, this is probably my favorite folding knife at the moment. I think the price is reasonable for the materials that you get and the quality, especially for the lightweight models. So what do you think? Did I drink the Kool-Aid? Am I a Spider bro? Or do I just know a great knife when I see one? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this review, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, as that helps me bring you more reviews like this one. Also, if there are any knives or other EDC gear that you'd like me to check out, please suggest them down in the comments. Or if you'd like to see more comparison videos or more best of lists, let me know that too, because I want to bring you guys the content that you want to see. And if there's anything that you'd like to see different about my presentation, tell me. As you can see, I'm trying out some different things. Like I have a different backdrop here. The thumbnail is going to be a little bit different, but I'm always open to suggestions and constructive criticism on the content that I'm making. So until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I will see you in the next video.